It all started with a strange humming noise in the distance. At first, I thought it was just a passing truck, or maybe someone doing construction nearby. But when I stepped out onto my porch and looked across the stretch of land I'd called home for over 15 years, my stomach dropped. There it was, a freshly paved road, cutting straight through the middle of my ranch like it had always belonged there. No call, no letter, no warning. Just asphalt, cones, and a crew of workers who barely glanced in my direction. And the kicker? The local HOA was behind it. Now I've dealt with plenty of nonsense over the years, but this one? It took the cake. The road wasn't just some little path either. It went straight through my grazing fields, right past my barn, and even split the creek my cattle drank from. I tried calling the HOA, emailing, even showing up to one of their meetings. They brushed me off like I was the one causing trouble. Said it was part of a community improvement plan and that the land was technically accessible. Technically. That one word was all they needed to bulldoze through my property without blinking. I could have let it slide. Could have just patched up the fences and grumbled under my breath like most folks would, but I had a better idea. If they wanted to use my land like a public highway, then fine. I'd treat it like one. So I installed a toll booth. That's right, a full-blown gate, sign, and payment system. Every car that rolled through, HOA members, delivery trucks, even the landscaping crew, had to cough up $1,000 per entry. And you won't believe what happened next. Let's just say the HOA wasn't too happy. But by then, I had the law, and a whole lot of receipts on my side. The thing about living on a ranch is, you get used to people leaving you alone. I moved out here for the peace, the space, and the chance to live life on my own terms. Over the years, I built that ranch from the ground up, put up the fencing myself, raised livestock, and poured everything I had into making it my home. So when I saw that road going straight through the middle of it, I felt more than just anger. I felt betrayed and confused. How could anyone think it was okay to do that without even knocking on my door? After setting up the toll booth, I started digging into the paperwork. I spent late nights flipping through property records, zoning maps, and anything else I could get my hands on. That's when I noticed something odd. The HOA's new road project had some shady language buried in the fine print. Phrases like community, easement extension, and temporary right-of-way access. None of it made much sense at first, but I knew one thing for sure. They never had my permission. Not in writing, not even in conversation. I started documenting everything. I took photos of every car that crossed the line, logged every toll collected, and kept track of every complaint they tried to throw my way. Some of the HOA board members started acting real bold, too. One even tried to threaten me with fines for obstructing traffic. Imagine that, on my own land. But I stayed calm. I knew they were walking a legal tightrope, and all I had to do was hold the line. What made it even weirder was how quiet some of the neighbors got. People I used to chat with at the feed store stopped waving. Rumors started swirling, but no one came to me directly. It was like the HOA had them all spooked. And that's when I started to realize there was more going on here than just a road. Turns out the road was just the beginning. The deeper I looked, the messier things got. A few weeks after I put up the toll booth, I got a knock on my door from a guy claiming to be a consultant for the HOA. He didn't show me a badge or business card, just some paperwork he said proved the road was legal. I asked him straight, so why wasn't I told before bulldozers showed up on my ranch? He gave me a smile like I was just being difficult and said, "It's complicated." Then he told me if I took the toll booth down, there might be some room to negotiate. That's when I knew for sure this wasn't about community planning. It was about control. Meanwhile, I started hearing from other property owners on the outskirts of the HOA boundaries. One guy, a retired vet named Dale, told me they tried to rezone part of his land last year without notice. Another woman said the HOA pressured her to sell a portion of her field at a price way below market value. She said she refused, and then suddenly got hit with noise complaints and citations for improper landscaping. Same pattern: quiet intimidation, hidden paperwork, and a whole lot of dodging questions. My ranch just happened to be in the way of some kind of bigger project, maybe a new development or some backroom deal. They weren't just paving a shortcut, they were laying the groundwork for something much bigger. I found an old HOA meeting agenda buried online, and one line stood out: Future Phase, Greenview Connector Expansion. I'd never heard of it before, but it matched the direction that road was heading. I was starting to feel like a lone target in a much larger game, and while the toll booth was holding them off for now, I knew the pressure was just getting started. Calls from lawyers, letters in the mail, cars still rolling through even with the $1,000 toll. They weren't backing down, and neither was I. The real turning point came when someone tried to break the toll booth. It was just after midnight. I'd been sleeping light those days, half expecting something like this. The dogs started barking, like crazy, and when I looked out the window, I saw a pair of headlights aimed right at the gate. I grabbed my flashlight, boots still half on, and ran out. By the time I got there, the truck was gone, but the toll booth arm was cracked clean in half. Screws on the ground, bolts sheared off. That wasn't wear and tear, that was deliberate. I filed a report with the sheriff, but let's be honest, small-town law moves slow when HOA money's involved. I replaced the arm the next day, stronger this time, with steel reinforcements. But now, I was done playing defense. I needed to get ahead of this before they did something worse. I started talking to more folks around town, people who'd been quiet until now. Turns out this HOA wasn't just expanding roads, they were trying to push a whole luxury subdivision through under the radar. A fancy eco-living development, complete with shopping centers, walking trails, and new homes. All of it needing one thing: access through private land. My land. I found the plans. Not from them, of course, but through a guy who used to work for the land surveyor's office. He said he shouldn't be showing me this, but once he saw where that road cut through, even he admitted something wasn't right. My ranch wasn't just part of the route, it was the central connection point. Without my land, their whole plan fell apart, and that's when the legal threats got serious. Certified letters, court notices, claims that I was interfering with a public works project, but I'd already dug up enough to know they were bluffing, at least partly. The real question was how far they were willing to go to shut me up, and how far I was willing to go to stop them. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, something happened that flipped the whole situation on its head. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. On the other end was a soft-spoken man who said he used to serve on the HOA board, past tense. He told me he'd been pushed out months ago after questioning some of the newer development proposals. He said, "You're not crazy, and you're definitely not alone. That road? It's not just a shortcut, it's a fast track for something shady." He agreed to meet in person, somewhere neutral. We sat down at a diner just outside town, and he showed me documents I hadn't seen. Emails, internal memos, meeting notes that weren't made public. One email flat out stated they planned to establish use rights through assumed access. Basically, if they used my land long enough without me legally stopping them, they could eventually claim it through easement law. That toll booth? It wasn't just an annoyance to them. It was a roadblock to $1 million plan. But here's where the second twist hit me. The HOA wasn't the only one involved. A private developer, Greenpath Communities, was backing the whole thing. From behind the scenes. I looked them up. Big company. Lots of lawsuits. They'd done this before in other small towns. Sneak in under the cover of community growth, use HOA influence to push past resistance, and build out massive residential projects before anyone could react. My ranch wasn't just land. It was leverage, and they were running out of patience. That same week, I got served with a cease and desist demanding I remove the toll booth immediately or face serious legal consequences. Then came the unmarked SUV parked outside my gate for 2 days straight. No plates, tinted windows. They didn't get out, just sat there, watching. And that's when I realized this fight wasn't just about a road anymore. It was about power, silence, and how far some people would go when they think no one's watching. Everything came to a head on a Thursday morning, just after sunrise. I was walking the fence line when I heard engines, multiple. I turned and saw a convoy of trucks rolling toward the toll booth. Not just HOA vehicles either. These had GreenPath, Lagos, survey gear strapped to the backs, and a few of the guys looked more like security than contractors. I could feel it in my gut. This wasn't just another scare tactic. They were coming to force their way through, but they weren't expecting what I had waiting. The night before, I'd met with a lawyer, someone Dale had put me in touch with. She specialized in property rights and had already filed an emergency injunction to freeze all construction activity on my land. And just 30 minutes before those trucks showed up, she handed me a court order, signed by a judge. It barred the HOA and GreenPath from entering my property without permission pending a full investigation. That little piece of paper changed everything. When the trucks reached the gate, I stepped forward, calm as ever, and handed a copy to the man in charge. He barely glanced at it before his phone rang, probably his legal team. I watched his expression go from smug to stunned in seconds. They had no choice but to turn around, one by one. The toll booth stood firm. So did I. But just as I thought the dust was finally settling, the twist hit. A week later, I got another envelope, this time from a different law office. Turns out, a member of the HOA board had quietly sold off a narrow strip of land near the edge of my ranch months earlier. It was barely a sliver, almost invisible on the map, but it connected their road to a public access point. GreenPath had already begun rerouting plans, using that tiny strip to claim a new entry path that still cut dangerously close to my fields. Legally, it wasn't trespassing, yet. So while I won that first battle, the war was far from over. Tollbooth held the line. But now, I had to decide how far I was willing to go to protect the land I called home. In the weeks that followed, I doubled down. I hired a proper land surveyor to remap every inch of my property, marked every boundary, and filed updated documents with the county. The narrow strip GreenPath thought they could use? Turns out there were some old utility rights tied to it that hadn't been cleared. My lawyer found just enough legal friction to hold them up, again. It didn't stop the project for good, but it slowed them down enough to force negotiations. The HOA finally agreed to meet, this time with full transparency and legal reps on both sides. I laid it out plain. They had disrespected my land, my rights, and my trust. And now, if they wanted even a sliver of access, it was going to cost them. Big. After a few tense sessions, they backed off the road expansion. The toll booth stayed up. And while I didn't get an apology, I did get a settlement. Let's just say it was enough to make the damage repairs and fund new fencing, with a little left over for peace of mind. Dale and a few of the other neighbors started speaking, up too. Turns out, standing your ground has a way of inspiring others. The HOA's hold on the town started to weaken once people realized they weren't the only ones being pushed around. And as for GreenPath, they moved their plans out toward the next town over. Someplace with fewer fences, I guess. Looking back, it wasn't just about the road or the money. It was about setting a line that couldn't be crossed. I never wanted a fight, but I wasn't about to be run over either. Out here, land isn't just property, it's history, it's home. And if you want to take that from someone, you better be ready for more than a toll.